Okay, so what do you think of happiness?
And what do I think of happiness? I think that's a very big, maybe somewhat loaded question. Also very vague in a way. Like what aspect of happiness? Like what in what way are we supposed to approach that question?
Uh, I mean, I'm just trying to get us started here, but I think happiness.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, of course, yeah. But still, no. How should I use that? But
I think happiness is just uh, a lot of people try to pursue it directly, and it's very easy to end up into hedonistic patterns when you do that.
that's true. Hedonism does not necessarily mean happiness. You're just enjoying stuff. When happiness is supposed to be content with life in general.
Is that how you define happiness? Just general contentness?
I think so, yes. Like you have reached a point where you are content with where you are, what you're doing, your decisions. That would be happiness. You feel whole in a sense.
I see. I mean, happiness, yeah, it could be confused with direct pleasure and constant pleasure, but
If you do get the feeling of wholeness and happiness in general from direct pleasure, then yeah, you are happy. But that is not necessarily the case for most people.
direct pleasure is just not something sustainable.
That is also true. Like it's not something I would recommend either.
Yeah, it could definitely bring you down a bad path of drugs and whatnot. But usually, maybe the absence of pleasure is the true key to happiness. Kind of being able to hold back constantly from those very tempting desires is what generates a true generates true happiness and content. Bro, this fucking ambulance.
What's with the ambulance noise?
It's always like this here. But yeah,
Oh, that people getting injured a lot where you are.
I don't know.
Uh, I think like you're describing asceticism basically, like being happy with the least possible amount, or like the least pleasure basically makes you happy enough.
I mean, so many religions arrived at that conclusion that the
Yeah, yeah.
abstinence of pleasure and going directly towards suffering is kind of the answer.
And that's how Christianity have reached that in a sense with the whole how do you call it? I think it was called it's basically Christian mysticism, but I forgot the specific word for it. It's where they isolate themselves from civilization in general and go live in isolation.
The fucking Shaolin monks, dude.
Yeah, that's that as well. And then there's in Islam, Sufism. They don't necessarily isolate themselves from the rest of society, but they do rid themselves of any worldly pleasure in general.
But also, Islam generally involves a lot of restrictions from direct pleasure or experience pleasurable. What experience is pleasurable is a lot of it is haram. And in Christianity, a lot of it is sinful.
I would say yes and no. For example, the banning of substances like weed in Islam, for example, it's rather modern. It's not something that has always been the case, mostly because weed, especially in the last few decades, has been equated with being an intoxicant like alcohol and things like that. Uh, but most people throughout history did not have the same view. They were able to separate it from being an intoxicant. That does not mean that they were indulging in it the entire time. It's just that they didn't have the same Islamic ruling for it.
The same strict restrictions as
Yeah,
as they have now. In Qasr Hisham,
yeah.
like one of the Muslim monuments, um, they had like wine making facilities in a Muslim castle, which kind of
Ghasal
confused
Hisham,
me.
Ghasal Hisham, it's how do you call it? It is like plainly just hedonism. It's a ruler. He was
He was
essentially
hedonistic.
the Islamic version of a king. So it's just plain hedonism. It's not about the rulings or the restrictions or anything. They just didn't care. But when I'm talking about the restrictions, like other examples of restrictions being rather lenient, despite also being there at the same time, is on sex, for example. and marriage is that in Islam it has always been meant to be very easy to get married and divorced, so that you would not be restricted with uh, any specific
Sexual
partner that
desires.
you don't enjoy basically.
That's very modern in the case of it being as strict as it is now. It's a very tight hold
Yeah.
compared to how it's
So
been.
in Islam, restrictions have mostly increased rather than
Decreased, yeah. I mean,
decreased, like with Christianity.
we have a hyper literal culture nowadays, and we really like to go by the book, very
Yeah.
technical. So that's why, well, I guess that's what solidified a lot of the restrictions. Um, I think it was more flowy back then, was it not?
So
Like
it
I
becomes a
like
bit
I'm a
funny. Yeah, it was
Muslim,
way more
but
fluid.
it's not. I'm a Muslim, but it's not as strict a definition as it is nowadays. It's more like, yeah, I practice this amount of Islam, or yes, I just believe in Allah and His abilities, or I believe this should be haram and this should be halal. But it doesn't mean that you necessarily pray all five prayers and necessarily believe, for example, weed is an intoxicant, or you know, these X people should go to hell. It's just something. It's just. It feels like it's been more cultural than religion back then.
Uh, you mean the because you buffered a lot from my end while you were talking. So what I understood is that you were saying that religious education has been mostly cultural.
I feel like back then religion was a lot more mixed with culture than it is now. So
No, I think it's actually been more mixed with culture now than back then,
how
personally.
so?
Because back then there was not if you're translating it directly from Arabic, it's called like the gate of rationalism, where like you suggest different interpretations of the religion, or you use rationalism to answer specific questions that others doing the same with the religion might have answered differently from you. That was very, very common at the time. So there were so many different Islamic views, and people wouldn't conform since birth to one specific thing and then just roll with it their entire lives dogmatically. When the gate for by gate they mean basically allowing the thing to happen. When restrictions were placed on rationalism, it became much more cultural by the fact that people just had to learn this specific lifestyle, Islamic lifestyle that is not necessarily wrong or right. It's just what they happen to have their parents believe in before rationalism was banned, and now they just kept following it and then turned into culture.
I see what you mean by that, but it's a lot easier to enter a cultural religious space if the boundaries of what makes a religion are so blurry. Like you said back then, um, the definitions and interpretations of religion were a lot more varied than they are now. Especially that,
Yes.
especially with the advent of the internet, which allows us to spread one view and really mainstream that view across the world. And communication hasn't ever been faster than it is nowadays. So I think that the fact that the boundary of what makes following a religion following a religion is a lot more solid nowadays than it used to be back then, and that's why it's just a lot easier to mix culture and religion at the same time. But I see where you're coming from, and
Yeah, I get your point too as well. Yeah, it's
yeah,
interesting.
I think it was just a misunderstanding of each other's points, but we are both right in a way.
So I think both of our concerns or points address different aspects of the religion.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, definitely, I'd say that people are more religious and cultural, but but back then it was religion and culture were more of the same thing. Does that make sense?
Um, Not sure.
Let
Because I think if we want to, no, let's avoid specific examples actually. It might piss off some people. Uh, but if we're gonna talk about time periods, that would be more specific. If we look at the period of the Ottoman Empire, religion was mostly in the city centers, while in the countryside, you either had very, very obscure beliefs, or there were just barely any beliefs in general. So I think religion has mostly been separated until recently from culture in one way or another. Like, of course, it was not separated in the sense that they never had any relationship in influencing each other, like culture influencing religion and vice versa. That always has to be the case. It is not avoidable in any way. But religion being treated in the way as culture is treated, like how you're raised doing it, like you're raised to do this specific thing, this specific lifestyle, that is very recent. Nobody used to raise people on the fact that they are supposed to be this one specific sect,
Yeah, I
except in the
see.
cities, like I said, during the Ottoman Empire. And before the Ottoman Empire, even in the cities, they didn't raise you to be one specific religious sect. Like you had the choice throughout your life.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It was more about appreciating to a very specific extent, appreciating plurality in education, having all these different views. It's what allowed the empires to prosper, the Arab empires. But that's to a very specific extent. Once the belief becomes a threat to the state, they would usually always shut it down.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I see where you're coming from now. Yeah, I guess
Yeah,
nowadays religion and culture are a lot more tied than they used to be.
yeah,
But
that's what I'm trying to say.
yeah, you're definitely right on that case. But I still see that the boundaries between what makes someone religious and the boundary between religion and culture is just a lot more solid nowadays than it used to be. The
Could be
reason
the
I
case
see
as well.
that is the reason I see that the boundary is different is because now we're saying what makes you like a believer or a Muslim, you need to follow these specific acts in this specific way. It's a lot more defined what a Muslim is now than it was back then. I think. Is that true? I don't know.
Okay, yeah, okay, yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
I don't know if I'm
No,
right.
you're right on that as well. That is true. Because there is like this, like I keep stuttering in English. It's been a while since I spoke it, like in a full-on conversation. But yeah, I get what you mean in the sense that religion is much more uniform now. You have like Sunnis and you have Shias, and that's
Yeah,
about it.
exactly. And
The other sects
they
are very
believe X Y
irrelevant.
Z in X Y way. It's a lot less individualistic. It's a more community religion now, with the internet and all these and all the media that we could spread exactly ways how, like exactly how scholars all around the world agree on this specific interpretation, this specific way. Back then, by definition, it had to be more individualistic because we didn't have these methods of spreading these views. But maybe it was
You
more of a community thing. Like every small community had their own ways of practicing different aspects of
you're
Islam.
right on that fact. But then that also creates a paradox, don't you think?
How so?
Not a very paradox in like in the literal sense, but if you think about it in how you just described it, like you're right that the boundary of what religion is has been much more solidified, and now it's also spreading around much more easily because of how uniform it is, and because there's much more advanced communication methods. But you said that it stopped being individual and became community. So the boundary of religion has been better defined now, but then it also became a community thing rather than individual thing. And when something becomes a community thing, it turns into culture. So it's contradictory in a way, but the thing is, it's still correct. It's still a correct view, at least how I see it.
I see what you mean. It becomes cultural in a way. Well, it's very hard to define culture, but
That is fair. I think it's more difficult in not defining culture in the sense, but trying to understand which one affects more the other.
it's it's more like I feel like nowadays more like you do X Y Z, you're a Muslim, and not doing X Y Z, but still having these traditions that you carry out throughout your life from passed on from generation to another. That's culture. So I'm more defining religion to define culture.
But
Uh,
then, if you think about Eid, for example, each country full of Muslims celebrates Eid differently.
Yeah, but only celebrating Eid is like not. Oh, I see, I see, I see, I see.
which like Eid itself is not culture, or it is a form of culture in the sense that it's an education, because it's religion. But it's not. It's exactly like a cultural guideline. But then each country applies it differently based on their own culture. So it's like it's still very fused in together. I think there is no clear answer on this one because like we have assessed on how it changed, but then in both cases it was still very tied to culture.
Yeah. Well, maybe back then there was people who just had a stronger tie to God. I mean, like given the harsh conditions they lived in, it definitely brings out your belief to God. There's someone something to answer your prayers to help you in the situation you're in, and also just a general higher lack of scientific knowledge just gives people more of a hunger to find out what caused what and what made what. So,
I
given
would
that people
I
had a
would have agreed with that. I would have agreed with that if illiteracy wasn't on the rise in a lot of like half of Islamic countries right now.
literacy is on the rise,
Illiteracy.
illiteracy.
Yeah.
Why does that make you think they have a higher belief in God? Literally, the Muslim God is like the one that's telling you read, ikra. So,
Yeah, no, but it's a lack of literacy because it's a lack of literacy because of their conditions. But you were saying that like because of lack of scientific uh, enough
oh,
scientific knowledge, and also because
oh,
of
I see.
the harsh
Yeah,
conditions they were living in, they had higher belief. And now it's not like the conditions are that great either, considering that there's illiteracy, which means lack of knowledge and science.
that's interesting.
And
I thought literacy is the highest it's ever been now.
globally, yes, but in some countries, like let's say Iraq, for example,
It's going down.
literacy has taken like a massive downfall. Same with Syria as well.
That's interesting. Well, generally speaking, I guess if we weren't to consider those literacy downfalls, I'd say that generally people back then should probably have a stronger tie to religion, given the conditions they were in. I mean,
Could be, yeah.
really, really, like if you have a disease and there's no medicine, what are you gonna do? Like do some fake ass ritual and pray to something.
Funny story, actually. You reminded me of something I read once. There was this guy basically writing somewhat of a biography, like an autobiography, if I'm not wrong, about his life during the Crusade period, or like experiences that he's witnessed during the Crusade period. And well, one of the stories was a doctor being called by the Crusades, like an Arab doctor being called by the Crusades to go and treat one of their patients. So he goes to treat them, and he starts using scientific methods to treat the patient. And then the Crusades aren't convinced, so they bring their own doctor, who basically carves a cross with a knife on the head of the patient after shaving them bald, and telling them, "Okay, you're good, you're fine now." And then the patient died a week later. And then the doctor went back to his friend, which is the author of the book, and he started calling the Crusades barbarians that have no idea what civilized sciences are.
Sounds about
It just
right.
reminded me of that. It just reminded me of that because, like you mentioned, medicine and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Like it all ties in. Uh, yeah, I think back then generally like it's just so much easier to have a connection to a higher being because like let's look at the stars. If you look at the night sky and you see the stars, like what explanation do you have? You don't have a telescope, you don't know. That's just a giant ball of gas.
Oh, but they were
Nuclear
making
reactor.
very good advancements at the time. Like they had very great scientific institutions that were making very big pushes in science at the time. It's not like it was a dark age. It really wasn't.
I mean,
I mean,
you
it's
don't think
called it's
disease
called
and
Islamic.
famine wasn't a big issue?
It was called the Islamic Golden Age for a reason. You
I'm
know.
not talking about that specifically, but the Islamic Golden Age, yeah, I guess that's what That's one of the cool things about Islam, that they really embraced science when other religions didn't. Uh,
Yeah, kind of sad that was abandoned like in these days, but yeah.
these days, yeah, it is kind of abandoned. I mean, there are some, at least from the surface, there seems like there's a few contradictions, at least at the side of evolution with religion, especially the admittance of Adam and Eve, and then
Personally, oh, sorry, continue.
the science is kind of saying that no, we evolved from single-celled organisms up until here.
Yeah, personally, I think it's more surface, like you said. Like I agree with it, it's just being surface.
Yeah, the Quran's interpretations are very, very malleable, which allow it to kind of retain its truth in many situations. That's what I believe.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, moving on.
Off topic. Sunflower seeds are very good.
From what?
Sunflower seeds are very good.
Oh, they're amazing. Yeah, I love them.
Yeah, I'm
Berries are
devouring
good.
my
That's the issue, bro.
basket now.
You can't find berries in the Middle East. At
Can't
least
find what?
we can't find berries in the Middle East. At least where we're from. But berries here, bro. So good. I love berries.
I never developed a love for berries aside from strawberry because it's very common here.
Yeah. No, once you try blackberries, raspberries are amazing.
I think I tried them once, but they were frozen, so they didn't really taste like anything.
Ew. No, you need the fresh. You need that fresh shit.
Yeah, I really want to try the fresh one.
A lot of now, more from a more scientific perspective, I see happiness. A lot of it, like true contentness and happiness, is raising your baseline of dopamine as high as possible. And the way you increase, there's many methods where you could increase your baseline of dopamine, so your average levels of dopamine in your brain, which is like the chemical that makes you happy, uh, just gets higher for a very long time. One of them is cold showers, which is super interesting, and another one is working out, and that could be running or weightlifting, and
But cold showers give me headache.
a third one is
Cold
just
showers give me
abstinence.
headaches.
They give you headaches because you're not used to it yet. And
No, the thing is, maybe I have to get used to it. But they give me headaches, and when I get the headaches, I feel stressed, and feeling stressed makes the dopamine goes away. Makes the dopamine go away.
makes the dopamine go away. That makes sense. I mean, start with gradual. You can't just start with like max cold. But taking in a cold shower causes a whole new system in your body to like activate that doesn't usually activate in normal circumstances. It causes the release of something called cold shock proteins, which basically prevents your body from fucking dying under the cold. But also, I have a theory that that allows like certain mechanisms in your body, like healing mechanisms in your body, to take place that could only be signaled through these cold signals. And those healing mechanisms could allow higher dopamine release throughout the day. And there's some studies on it which shows that's the case.
Damn. Okay, then I guess I will not stop my cold shower routine.
I mean, it saves money.
True. That's true as well. I don't have to pay as much electricity anymore.
Exactly. So it's like it's benefits all around. It's really good for you, and you feel good throughout the day after you do it. I used to do it while I was high, just to like kind of mitigate the pain of the cold, but I don't know if that stops the whole mechanism from taking place. From my experience, it doesn't.
You know what really fucks up my dopamine?
What?
When I spend too much electricity and then I have to pay high bills.
Well, there it's a double-edged sword. It's a double-edged sword, but both edges are facing one way. It's good. Just to
Yeah,
do cold showers. It saves like it's two birds, one stone.
yeah. Actually, I'm gonna keep doing cold showers. Very, very beneficial.
You gotta move, bro. I start dancing when I put a cold shower. Like I start, you gotta start moving.
No, I can handle it now. It's just the headache's still there.
Maybe avoid your head.
Yeah, could work as
Wear
well.
wear
Thing
wear a
is,
fucking shower cap or
the thing is,
something.
hmm?
Wear a
What?
fucking shower cap or something.
Could work. Thing is, it's just that the weather here in general is just cold. I feel like if it's during summer, uh, it would uh, it would be less of a problem.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it's gonna be soon. It's gonna become
Yeah,
hard.
like 1 month.
Yeah. Uh, Having like a goal and feeling like you have a purpose is also something that makes you very happy. But I don't know if it's the pursuit of that purpose that makes you happy, or it's that because you're pursuing that purpose, you're abstaining from other things that would make you sad. So it's hard to tell exactly what's doing what here.
That's true. That is true. Like I think about that as well.
Like
That's stuff I was
like
thinking about.
I'm going for a run to get better and better at track, instead of doing drugs, instead of, I don't know, watching porn, doing something like that. I'm going for a run. Now, am I happy because I'm pursuing the goal of running X time, or is it because I'm avoiding this, or both maybe? So
I don't have urges to do either drugs or watch porn personally.
but
So
what
I'm
makes you
like
sad?
there is very little to do.
What do you do you think is harmful? What do you do that you think is directly harmful?
Uh, Thinking, probably overthinking. Like I do a fuck ton of overthinking. So that is probably the main thing I usually try to distract myself with. But having purpose is not something that can prevent overthinking. No, in fact, it can actually increase it a lot. But like when you do reach a goal within your overall purpose, despite all your overthinking or possible negativity, it feels like a double win. Like I conquered both my negative thoughts and the possibility of failing.
Yeah, you won both ways. You stopped the negative thoughts and you achieved your goal.
So it feels like a very big win, which feels great, but it doesn't get rid of the negative thoughts in general. It just makes it just like told you so. That feeling of like satisfaction of telling someone told you so, but it's like to yourself.
Yeah, for sure. It's so satisfactory to like just fuck up the haters. Like, hey, I did this despite what you told me.
But the hater is yourself, pretty much.
Usually the haters yourself. That's very true. A lot of people like to say everyone thought I no, it's just you. No one
Yeah,
really
yeah, yeah,
no one
yeah.
really cares at the end. Really no one really gives a shit.
Some people do care, surprisingly, whether you succeed or not, and which I find very weird.
Do you think
Why
so?
why the fuck would you care?
Who?
It's not something
Friends and
like think
family.
about it. Like, Kenan, I know you are someone that does not really give that much of a shit what others do with their life, which I think is cool. So try to think about it here with me for a second. Why why the fuck would anyone care if someone on the other end of the planet, for example, uh, decided to dress in pink, let's say,
Just what?
decided to dress in pink, and,
In
and they're a
pink.
male.
And they're male. Oh, I see.
Like, why would anyone, why should anyone ever give a shit about that? I don't see the point. Why? Well, you're just stressing yourself over something that you will probably never even see in your life, considering that they're on the other end of the planet. And even if you could see it in your life, it does not affect you in the end. Neither does it affect anyone you care about, anything you love. And it's probably affecting you negatively to care about it, since you're stressing yourself over something that does not matter.
That's very true, but when you're told your entire life that this bad, this bad, this bad, this bad, and then you see bad, you're like,
Yeah, that is true.
you
That
end
is
up
true. But
pointing it
then
out. I
does
wasn't even
does it
thinking of
never
caring as a
occur to
negative
them?
way. I was thinking of caring as like a positive way, like a nice way. But you just brought it to a negative topic. With negativity, I could definitely see why people could spread negativity. It's easier, I think, for some reason.
I think it's not that I think you shouldn't care about things. No, of course you should care about things, just in a way that is good for both you and the thing that you're caring about. Like, how is it good for you to care about something that is so harmless as someone dressing in a specific color or having a specific haircut?
It makes more sense evolutionarily to be more negative outside because you're detecting a threat. You're like, this is a threat. It's more than it's easier to be negative than give praise. It just makes sense because if someone told you this is a threat your entire life and you detect the threat, it's your body's just like, hey, this is a threat. It needs to stay away. We need to avoid this in every way possible. But if there's something good, like why should you even worry about what's good, right? Like it's good already. You don't need to point it out. So it's hard to think of them as equal. I think we just as humans we tend to care about more about what sucks. Like it's just so much easier to focus on what sucks, what's bad in your life. You don't focus on it's harder to focus on what's good in your life. I'm sure some people do it, but it takes practice, right?
And I think it really depends on the upbringing of the person, which you did actually mention, like being told your entire life that this bad and etc. So I think, yeah, it does heavily depend on the upbringing. If someone has been raised in a more negative way to just focus on the negatives in order to push it away, they will be negative, even if the purpose of that negativity is supposed to be positive, pushing away things that are not supposedly pleasant. That like the intention of that is positive. It still makes you a negative person overall.
Yeah, for sure. But I'm thinking of it more like from a scientific perspective where you're like basically with this herd
Caring
of
less,
people.
caring less, caring less will make you feel better. Like caring less about this type of stuff will definitely make you
Oh yeah, for
feel
sure.
better in general throughout your life.
For
But
sure.
like you said, it's not evolutionarily speaking, it's not that good because you probably also would not be able to notice very minute details that might very much impact you.
Yeah, I mean, like, look, you're raised with these group of individuals, group of adult humans, and they're alive. They sustain themselves. So it's the utmost important for you to listen to what they did and what they didn't do, and act accordingly. Because at the end of the day, your goal is just to survive, right? And at least and hopefully survive happily. But getting
Genetically
that idea
speaking,
drilled into your head and it's a threat, it's a threat, it's a threat is gonna make you go ballistic when you see it. And it's also something that just pisses people off, and I think that's because everyone around them gets so mad when they see something like that. Now that could be because they take it as an insult to their own culture and religion and their upbringing, which could be true in a way, but I don't know.
well, there's two things I think I have to say on that is like the end goal being survival. I think, yeah, sure, genetically maybe, but psychologically not really, since most people do not see existence as enough. Like, yeah, you exist. What next? And secondly, the uh, it being against the culture, therefore a perceived threat or something like that. A lot of these things are not necessarily against the culture. It's just uh, the newer generations, or rather modern or recent events, have shaped people's psyche in order to push them against these things. For example, the color pink, it being associated with femininity, is a very, very recent uh, addition to most cultures around the world. And it mostly relates to it being a thing in the US and Western Europe, and the US and Western Europe having a monopoly over media throughout the world has made them able to export these ideas or these perspectives.
I see.
So, for example, if you look at uh, an old guy here, like an old person here, they would not share your view that the color pink is the female color. But someone our age, yeah, they would think that, and they would want to be pushed away from it, even though it does not threaten them. It's not against their culture, and it's not emasculating in any real, meaningful shape or form.
Is it not in any meaningful? I mean, the fact that we think it emasculates and so many people think it becomes something meaningful. People will treat you differently
It
for it.
becomes something. Yes, it becomes something meaningful. But here it goes way deeper here, in the sense that, like, I'm trying to keep the, like, what I'm saying, surface level, because if we're gonna go deeper than that, then I will have to feel the need to write a research paper.
All right.
But what I mean by that is media is very important when it comes to these things.
Yeah. I definitely see that. Why do you think so many companies promote LGBT and the promotion of basically, like you said, like a man wearing pink is okay, and kind of reversing the traditional masculine views we have nowadays.
Oh no,
And
I said the opposite. I said the opposite. I said that they made pink into female color, therefore pushing out men away from it. But
yeah,
now they're
but
doing the opposite. Now they're doing the
companies
opposite.
here are trying to reverse that. Companies here are trying to reverse that.
Recently here they've been trying to do the opposite. But if you go back 10 years ago, they were trying to do just that. Like saying pink is female and blue is male, which has never been a thing before. Now they're trying to do what is being done in, the US and Europe and etc.
Which is
Um,
reintroduce, like, change what is seen as masculine, what's seen as feminine, and
yeah, change it again, change it all over again.
change it all over again. Yeah.
Why they do that, I think, is depends on where it's being done. So in Europe and in the US, it's completely different reasons than why it would be done in the Shuttle East. In the US, having it become the main, I don't want to call it ideology, considering that you can pretty much be a homosexual without having any ideas tied to it. You just have attraction to men while being a man, or male while being a male.
Where is that?
Uh,
Where in
like
U.S.?
that's not, no, in general I'm speaking. That's not ideological, but in Western countries, it's being turned into an ideological
That's
thing.
very true. Yeah, it is turned. Your sexual orientation is turned to a political ideology.
Yeah, it's not just political. It's just in general, like life ideology in general.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
Because
this is your view.
since
You
when,
think this, etc., etc.
yeah, since when has sexuality been a community? Have you? How does that even work?
I mean, I
Like
think it.
it's
I think it
the gay
arises from.
community,
I
the
think it
lesbian
arises from
community. Like, that's not
oppression.
a thing.
It
Hmm?
probably. Wait, your audio just is like your audio is kind of. It's like you're underwater a bit.
I moved around a bit. Is it okay now?
Yeah, it's perfect now. I think the
Oh,
community arises as a retaliation to homophobic groups. So, like, the community arised, and that allowed for, like, an umbrella of protection for all different sexualities against, like, homophobic, etc. people.
that does make sense to an extent, but how come that is turning into a global thing in countries where this quote unquote community has never had historical existence there?
I mean, because it's a global issue now.
Yes, but
Like,
those
there
countries
are
never asked for its
homophobic,
importation.
especially in the Shittle East. There's, like, so many homophobic people. It's
Yeah,
hard
but
not to
why is
have a
it
community.
LGBT specifically? Like, why is there no local initiative that is local? Like, why it doesn't have to be an like importation of the Western model, or like Western? It's a form of essentialization. I think that's
I
number
think
one. The
it's
issue in
I
the
think it has
West.
to do with the internet as well. Like, no community has so much power compared to the LGBT, um, and is openly different sexuality. Like, if any other smaller community came up, it could have been squashed in seconds.
Uh, is there an example?
I don't know. I'm just hypothesizing.
Wait. Amsterdam launches "Stay Away" ad campaign targeting young British men. Okay. I just saw a random video title saying that Netherlands is launching ad campaigns telling British people to stay away from the Netherlands.
Why so?
I have no idea, but it sounds incredibly funny.
Dumb.
Either ways, yeah, back to topic. It's how we say it is that it's a form of essentialization where you know uh, the main goal should have never been to create quote unquote communities, because that's impossible. It's not a culture. What they're trying to do is create a culture around being gay, around having attraction to something, but you don't choose to have attraction. You can leave a culture if you want, but you can't, exactly, like, once you're an adult, you can't exactly change so much of what you're attracted to.
Yeah. it's definitely not as easy as switching an idea than switching a sexuality. There's definitely a lot of genetics and upbringing that plays into that.
Yeah. So what they do with how the model works is that once it's a community, community implies culture. So how does that even work? It shouldn't work because anyone right now, born right now, could grow up to become a homosexual or a pansexual or whatever you name it, bisexual, etc. All these different terms. These terms, in of themselves, creating communities around them, means it's essentializing them. It means that there is a correct way to be gay. There is a correct way to be lesbian. There is a specific category, and putting sexuality into a category is in itself a big problem. Why does it happen though? Like you said, there is the issue with them being, historically marginalized, and then them having to rise up against it. So that means they have to create networks for them in order to cooperate together, which in turn could create a community. And that makes sense with keeping it in the West and not essentializing it too much, just keeping it as how do you say it? I'm trying to think of a comparable example. I'm trying to think. Has there ever been institutions that I'm trying to think of an institution that they could compare it to? Um, this is a funny comparison. A lot of people would not like this comparison, but think of the IRA in Ireland.
What
Like
about it?
even after the original IRA has been disbanded, the cultural impact of the IRA was still very relevant to the point that even after it was disbanded, people from completely different, unrelated backgrounds from the IRA uh, created organizations named after the IRA. So in this sense, it makes sense to have these movements using the term LGBT that were important historically keep some cultural significance in general in the countries that they operated naturally in, like they arised in. It does not make sense for them to keep existing as like genuine communities with genuine culture, isolated from people who are not part of it, because sexuality is not something that you could really gather a community around.
I don't think it's
Uh,
as far off the like far off as absurd as you. I don't think it's as absurd as you're proposing it to be. I mean, we have community around race, and you can't really control that.
no, I
Like,
think that's absurd too. No, I think communities around race are also absurd.
I mean, yeah, I guess in that case they are both absurd, but it's very easy to like see person that has this in common, so thus we're gonna network, and it eventually creates a culture and community. Like that's just how things work, right? I mean, there's
Yes,
fuck
but
it.
I'm saying the issue here
There's
is
gym culture,
essentializing it.
bro. Like there's gym culture,
Hmm?
and everyone probably people who are very invested in gym culture has good genetics for building muscle, and that's something you really can't control, or have a propensity to just go to the gym.
But
It
gym
feels
is a
like something
choice.
natural
Gym,
to
gym is a
happen.
choice.
I mean, you have the choice to go to it, yeah, but it's just when there is something in common, X in common, it's just so easy to create community and culture around that. That's why America's so fucking fractured. There's so many different like people with so many different backgrounds, so many different perspectives. It's hard to create a unity. And that unity was once through religion, but now with the rise of like science and everything, it's like people are just becoming more atheist. It's just hard. You don't find a common you find smaller communities of culture here. You don't find one unifying culture other than I'm American, and that's because usually they have these aspects of them that a lot of the times are out of their control. So yeah,
There's just an issue with identity in general in the US, you could say. But that's the thing. There are things that should never be essentialized. One of them is sexuality, because then that means that people who do not fit into very specific binaries in the very complete random terms and binaries that people have put. Not all of them are random. I mean, homosexuality is not random. Like it's very like basic, very easily understandable. But some is truly random. Like a lot of the newer terms that are being used, like having so many, like something that is as fluid as sexuality being essentialized and put into categories, isolates people out. Just like how like they themselves, like homosexuals and others, were themselves essentialized and kept out of the general mainstream, which is being straight. Like it's doing the exact same thing. Now, of course, it's not as bad considering that they're not really doing
Yeah,
it
they're
to
not
oppress
going
others.
out and like fucking killing people that say they're
Yeah,
this or
yeah,
that
yeah,
or
yeah.
act like this or that. So
Exactly, but on a cultural level, it has the same negative impact.
I see what you mean.
On a well-being level, it does not have the same impact whatsoever, since it's not killing people, it's not harming them on these very psychologically and bodily terrible ways. But it does affect the culture very negatively, as is what is being seen in the U.S.
It definitely creates
Oh,
this. It definitely creates this aura of
sunflower seeds,
exclusion.
so good. Yeah,
It definitely creates this aura of exclusion where, um, you're kind of like you could be homosexual, but you don't want to identify as part of that group. Then like where you're left to go, you're excluded from both ways. It's kind of like back then. It's like you just have nowhere to
yeah.
go.
It's like back then, but on a way, 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 way less bad level.
I
But
mean,
it's
way
still
less.
not
Yeah,
good.
way, way, way less physically bad, like you said, but culturally, it's the same result.
Yeah, 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 pretty much. And then we spoke about it being exported to other countries, but we didn't go deep enough on that. And I would really want to speak, like at least mention it quickly,
Yeah, go ahead.
which is what was it? Oh yeah, it's basically it's a form of imperialism, as much as that would piss some people off. It is really a form of imperialism because once the state adopts uh, these symbolisms and the essentializations, once they adopt it as if it's righteousness to go and protect it and export it around the world and defend it, it becomes an excuse to go and basically fuck other countries up. Like other countries being tolerant of sexual fluidity used to be an excuse for empires in Europe and the West in general to go and invade them. Now, so once they finally adopted the European view that sexuality should not be fluid and should be one specific method or way expressed in one specific way. Now, once they finally adopted that, Europe went back and created multiple different ways, all of them essentialized though, and now says that if you do not accept these new binaries, you're terrible and you should be invaded again.
It kind of reminds me of like we're gonna invade your country to improve the economy.
But yeah, 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 like you're fucking us up basically. Like
Yeah, but in this case, it's like
you're paying for us.
we're gonna
You're
improve your
jumping.
culture, so we're gonna invade this country.
Yeah, yeah. Basically, they're just trying to import culture with the excuse that the culture is superior, which is whoa. That sounds like what they were doing in the past. I mentioned them saying that being like other cultures being more towards fluidity and sexuality, Europe seeing it as bad. I mentioned that and mentioning it as a form of superiority complex. But in general, saying like this culture that we're importing to you or like exporting to you, sorry, is superior. That is generally, regardless of it being in the past or now, that is generally the same thing as like white supremacy in general, and also just colonialism, like colonial ideology in general. Like, oh, we're gonna go to these other countries and civilize them and etc.
I
It's
mean,
the same shit.
It's Orientalism manifested. It doesn't matter what culture the West has. The West just sees the East as inferior, and therefore whatever they come up with is better, and they're gonna come invade it again with the new phase that they come up with next.
Yes, yes, yes. It's exactly that. Yeah.
But it's just better to have a fluid model. Like, not have all these categories of I'm this, I'm that, I'm that. Just let people fuck who they want, honestly. And that's the way it should be. But I really believe that we're kind of overly, we're causing sexuality to be overly discreet as a a defensive mechanism against homophobes. But it's uh, it's definitely bordering the point where it's becoming too much. There's too many categories. At the end of the day, I think people are a lot more fluid than what this categorical analysis is admitting.
I completely agree. I completely agree. Do you have sunflower seeds in the U.S.?
Yeah, we do. it's not as popular, so you don't really end up eating it.
Oh, makes sense.
Yeah, you don't find it everywhere either. It's less common.
And I'm quite tired, and I haven't spoken English in a very long time. So I keep like I'm having trouble expressing concisely what I'm trying to say without stuttering and also fucking up with the words. But still, I hope like my what I'm trying to say is getting across.
Damn, you're a lot clearer than me, bro. My mind is kind of off because I'm very tired from running and kind
But
of
you're much more
just
concise.
some after effects of the. No, I'm not much more concise. You're coming off as having a lot more information. You're a lot more direct, but I I just need I just need my mind to recover from the weed, and I need to recover my
Because
energy, and then I'll be a lot better. The za, the za.
humor is a great source for happiness, or at least like temporary dopamine.
That's so true. That is so true,
Man, love jokes.
bro. It's the best thing ever. Like we've been like, I've been in some shitty situations, and just a joke, just like looking at your situation from a third person perspective, and like pointing and laughing is so funny. It just works.
That is very true. That is very true.
Or like looking at your friend where you just both you fucked, like you both knew you fucked up and you're both in the same situation. You just look at each other and laugh is such a good feeling. It feels like you're above life.
True, true. You remind me of like something that happened with me once. I was in a cafe restaurant kind of type of thing abroad, and I was being harassed by a girl there for some reason. She was drunk, but it was still was very annoying. So I tried, like I was for 2 hours straight. I was trying to keep her away, like please keep away. Like, you're annoying. You're you're quite literally harassing me like in public. And you're getting a passport because you're drunk, and it's really annoying. At one point, I got very mad, so I started shouting at her. And then my friend, he was there, so it just comes to me, and then just whispers something. I don't remember what he whispered exactly, but it was so stupid. It was so childish, and he had like this very he had a little kid impression while doing it, like this like stupid childish voice. And I couldn't stay mad. Like it was just too fun.
It's the way it is, man. If you have good humor, you could really get out of some shitty situations. Like
True.
it just brings the realness out of people. You could tell whether they're actually mad or actually sad or actually like once you say a funny enough joke and they laugh, you realize that it's not that deep.
True. I was just very easily irritated at the time. Still, till today sometimes.
It's easy to get easily irritated, but you know,
Yeah.
just don't take life too seriously, I guess. Maybe that's the key to happiness. As we've been so on topic this entire podcast.
Yes, yes, we are very. Well, we agreed that this is not a podcast. This is an
Discussion
elaborate video note.
video note, yeah. If anyone's watching fucking 53 minutes in, and it has been that long, have you noticed?
Oh yeah, no, it's 57, I think.
53, like recording.
Oh,
It's
okay.
about to be 54 minutes, yeah.
Do not underestimate the boredom of suburban American teens.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing. I mean, we are slightly deeper, I think, but I think we could go a lot deeper. I have an
So about
entire
videos.
philosophical system I created in my head when I was 18 for happiness, and I could talk about it, but if I would talk about it now, it'd kind of be a waste because I know no one's going to be watching it. Almost no one.
So you wanna leave it for like? Oh wait, what's the title of the video?
The title of the video is Secrets to Happiness Life Hacks from a Recovering Addict and a Homeless Guru.
Yes, yes, yes. So you're basically leaving it until. Fuck, I need to look it up myself. It's difficult to remember. Oh yeah, so you're waiting for to flex your philosophical system in Secrets to Happiness Life Hacks from a Recovering Addict and
Two.
Homeless Guru, Part 2.
Part two, yes. The thing
I
is, the
commented
issue
on
with long format videos is now fucking. Should I put Subway Surfers as the other half of the fucking? It's too long, man. No one's gonna pay attention for like 2 minutes in. Oh, okay, khalas. Like we're done.
that. You should put like a disclaimer at the start of the video, telling them to put it on double speed.
Bro, double speed ain't enough, bro. We got like 5 times speed with the Root Sandstorm in the background.
You could split it into like 3 videos or like 2.5 or something. And yeah, like people would be less unincentivized to watch if it's like split into different parts. That's because people are easily tricked by attention destroying illusions.
Yeah, I definitely see that. Let me check out the cha, the cha 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 cha,
We don't have a chat, we're like,
the channel.
0 subs.
I mean the channel.
Uh,
And let's see. Yeah, broke alert. 0 views. I guess I'm a failure. I guess I'm never gonna make it. I guess.
you uploaded that video today. I don't know what you're expecting.
Mm. But yeah, anything else you want to talk about, or should we end it here? It's your choice.
It should be yours. It's your channel.
Man, stop redirecting. I asked first.
Fair, but I don't want authority over someone else's channel, and I know it feels like a dick move.
I'm giving you authority. Do not feel like it's a dick move.
Okay, I'm sure. I have no problem talking about anything else. I still have to stay awake until sahur.
What time? How many hours?
It's until it's like almost 2 a.m. So it's like 1 more hour.
Okay. Let me check out something.
Which implies that we should probably split this into parts.
I got fucking sent a weird ass image of my house. That's weird.
That sounds creepy.
It is fucking creepy.
Who sent you that?
Majd. Oh, one of the. Is she here? Yo. Okay, it's one of my friends.
Majd is a girl's name?
Yeah.
What? Crazy.
Majd could work for guy, girl. Gender neutral name.
I thought it was just a name.
Let's see. Okay, so basically, the secret to happiness is make your life miserable, and you'll end up being happy. As contrary as that sounds, just exercise, which makes you feel miserable at the moment. Eat healthy food, which also makes you feel miserable because healthy food never fucking tastes good.
That is not true. That is objectively not true.
I
That
mean,
is
in a
very,
place
very
like you, yeah, but in a place like America, it's like the blandest fucking food you could imagine, bro. If it's healthy, it's gonna taste Caesar salad. It's ass.
Okay, fair. Like I have very strong feelings about food, stronger than feelings about colonialism.
Wow. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. You do love food. We could talk about food next time. Actually, that would be fun.
Yes, yeah, that would be amazing. Philosophy of food. That would be amazing.
And what is it? Literally abstain from reels. Every pleasure, every direct pleasure you could get really easily. Abstain from that, and hopefully one day you'll be happy. That's the secret.
Real.
Or just take a shit ton of antidepressants and weed, and then you'll be really happy. You'll be ecstatic for like 5 days, and then you'll die.
Crash and you crash.
You'll crash. Yeah, it'll be absolutely horrible.
I was gonna say reels do not feel good to watch. They definitely do not feel good.
Bro, if you take a break from reels for a while and then you go back to it, it's so like it flood. You feel so good. It's literally like getting heroin. I'm not joking. That shit feels so good after taking a long break.
You tried heroin for you to say that.
It's like taking fucking weed, man. I don't know, alcohol.
Okay. No, I'll take your word for that thing. I never tried it, so.
Just don't get back to it, honestly. You just
I
feel
have
more
not.
miserable.
I have not watched reels in a. Wait, no, that's not true. I watched reels today. Whenever someone sends me reels, I feel like it's rude for me not to watch them. You know?
No, watch it. Just don't scroll. I know it's hard not to scroll.
Yes, yeah, never scroll. Do not scroll.
Do
That
not
is very
scroll.
very important rule in life.
But that reel was worth watching. You can't lie.
The one you sent me, yeah, no, yeah, that was funny. But let's not talk about it because if you do eventually get one viewer somehow,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah. Let's not. I mean, we
it,
did talk
it, it
about. We did
like
talk about
it would
some.
confuse them, you know.
We did talk about some. Yeah, they wouldn't get it. we would. We do talk about some slightly corrosive topics. Some
Yeah, it's like avoid inside jokes, you know.
abort. Yeah, exactly. No inside joke for that.
Um, I love
Okay,
Papa Cheese so much.
I'm gonna end the video, but I'm gonna end the video now. So 3, 2, 1.